It was 6:45 in the morning. The sun was barely up, but the No-Sue mansion was already in full-blown chaos. In the kitchen, Danny, smoke curled from the toaster like a warning signal. The kettle screamed on the stove. Scrambled eggs bubbled violently as if trying to escape the frying pan. Daniel's shirt was stained with orange juice. One of his socks was somehow stuck to the fridge. And his face looked like... He wasn't just a CEO. He was also a father of twins and a widower, still trying to balance grief. He poked his head out of the kitchen, spatula in hand. "Guys, breakfast is almost ready." No reply. Then, stomp, stomp, stomp. Tiny feet came thundering down the hallway, and so the second battle of the morning began. "I say we wear pink today," said Ava, his 7-year-old daughter, strutting in like she was heading to a red carpet event. Her skirt sparkled. Her sunglasses looked expensive. "No, I'm not a girl. Let's wear blue," Aiden shouted, his twin brother waving a wrinkled blue t-shirt like a battle flag. "But we wore blue yesterday," Ava argued, hands on her waist. "So what? Let's wear it again today," Aiden shouted louder. Ava stepped forward like a little general. "I'm your older sister. You should listen to me," Aiden scoffed. "Older by what? 5 minutes? I'm still the second man in this house after Daddy." From the kitchen, Daniel groaned. "Guys, stop arguing and come sit for breakfast. And for heaven's sake, stop chewing the phone chargers." He added that last part quickly, remembering how Aiden once tried to taste a USB cable just to see if it had flavor. The twins marched over to the table, still grumbling. Daniel dropped their plates like he was serving royalty. Toast, scrambled eggs, juice, and one big spoonful of love. He folded his arms, waiting proudly. They each took one bite, and chaos resumed. "Daddy, your cooking tastes worse than a 5-year-old's, Ava declared. "Yeah, it's too salty and too spicy," Aiden added, sticking out his tongue like he'd been poisoned. Daniel collapsed into a chair like he'd just fought a lion. "Really? Let me taste." He took a bite, made a face. "Okay, maybe I rushed it, but it's not my fault. If you two didn't scare off every nanny, I wouldn't be the one cooking." He pointed at them dramatically. Aiden folded his arms and replied like a lawyer in court. "Daddy, the nannies you hired didn't understand that we are special. That's why it didn't work out." Daniel raised an eyebrow. "Who told you that you're special?" "You did!" the twins shouted together. "You tell us every day, even this morning." Daniel sighed. "I mean, you are special, but you still need to let people help." He looked up toward the ceiling, as if praying. "Please, please, don't drive the next nanny away." The twins nodded, like they were doing him a huge favor. And then came battle number 3. Getting dressed for school. Daniel ran up and down the house like a man on fire. He searched for missing socks, combed Ava's hair while she screamed, tied Aiden's shoelaces, only to be told that's not how Miss Peace used to do it. He packed lunchboxes, water bottles, toothbrushes. One of them spilled juice on their uniform and had to change again. By the time he dropped them off at school, Daniel looked like he'd been hit by a bulldozer. He arrived at his office at exactly 9:12 in the morning. His tie was crooked. His soul, even more so. Just as he leaned back in his chair to catch his breath, his secretary walked in. "Sir, your 12 o'clock meeting has been moved to next week. The clients had to travel for a family emergency." Daniel didn't even try to hide his relief. He closed his eyes and whispered, "Thank God." Linda, his assistant, raised an eyebrow. "Are you okay, sir? You look like someone who fought a tiger." Daniel opened one eye and muttered, "2 tigers every morning." Daniel rubbed his forehead, letting out a long, tired sigh. His coffee had gone cold. His calendar was packed. But none of it compared to the chaos waiting for him at home. He looked up at his secretary. "I need a new maid," he said flatly. "Someone grounded, patient, someone who understands kids, and maybe magic." Linda tapped her pen thoughtfully. "I think I might know someone, sir, but I'm not sure she'd be interested." Daniel leaned forward. "I'll pay anything. I just need someone who can restore order to my household." Linda raised an eyebrow and grinned. "Or maybe you need a girlfriend." Daniel pointed to the door. "Out, I'm still your boss." They both laughed, but behind the humor was desperation, because deep down, Daniel knew. The twins didn't just need structure, They needed warmth. They needed someone who could see past their tantrums and into their wounded little hearts. Someone who could love them without being scared away. Across town, in a much quieter and less glamorous home, another kind of storm was brewing. Valerie sat on the edge of a creaky mattress, her hands folded in her lap, her eyes locked on a peeling ceiling fan. The walls around her whispered words she had heard far too many times. Useless. Empty basket. A woman who brings shame. Those weren't just insults. They were her soundtrack. Her name had become a punchline in her own home. Her husband's family reminded her daily of one thing. She had not given them a child, and in their eyes that made her worthless. She once had dreams, a career, a voice, but all that had slowly faded until she became a shadow living in someone else's house. Her phone buzzed. It was Linda. Valerie sat up quickly and answered, her voice trembling with quiet hope. "Hello, babe?" Linda said. "Are you still looking for a job?" Valerie straightened her back, instantly alert. "Yes, anything that gets me out of this house. My boss is desperate," Linda continued. "He's a widower, a single father of twins. The last 15 maids didn't last, but the pay is good, and the kids, well, they just need someone who won't run at the first storm." Valerie's eyes softened, her voice steadied. "I'll do it. I'll try. I really need this." Linda lowered her voice, suddenly serious. "I have to warn you. These kids, they've been through a lot. They lost their mom early. They push people away. They don't trust easily. So if you take this job, it can't just be for the money." Valerie nodded, even though no one could see her. "I understand. I'm not afraid of children." "What about the adults?" Linda asked, her voice tinged with worry. Valerie paused, her heart sank a little. "My husband doesn't support me. And his mother, she's already planning to bring in a second wife." There was silence on the line. Linda let out a long breath. "Then let's get you out. This job might be your way back to life." Just as Valerie whispered, "Thank you," a voice thundered from the hallway. "Valerie, come boil water for my bath." It was her mother-in-law. That voice didn't just interrupt, it pierced. Valerie lowered the phone slowly. "I have to go," she whispered. She didn't even say goodbye. Instead, she rose from the bed, tied her headscarf a little tighter, like armor, and stepped into the kitchen. That evening, Valerie sat by the small window in her bedroom, watching the streetlights flicker on one by one. Outside, life moved forward. Inside, she felt like time had frozen. Her phone lay beside her, quiet, but her thoughts were loud. She didn't know what tomorrow would bring. She didn't know if she could handle rich children with attitudes or a single father with high expectations. But she did know one thing. She had to leave this house before it buried her completely. The next afternoon, she found herself standing in front of a tall glass building. It was the headquarters of Nosu Constructions, one of the biggest firms in the city. She clutched a slim file in both hands, whispered a prayer under her breath, and walked in. Security guards in suits, reception desks that gleamed. The air smelled like expensive perfume and quiet power. She rode the elevator to the top floor, staring at her reflection in the shiny door. She looked presentable, clean, determined. When she reached the office, she took a deep breath and knocked. A calm male voice responded from inside. "Come in." Valerie stepped inside carefully. The office was large and beautifully furnished. Daniel Nosu sat behind a massive desk, typing on his laptop. He didn't look up. "Have a seat," he said simply. She sat. Her palms were sweaty, but her posture stayed straight. Without lifting his eyes from the screen, Daniel asked, "My secretary said you're very good with children." "Yes, sir," Valerie replied softly. Still typing, he continued, "Do you have any formal qualifications? A degree in early childhood care? Hospitality?" Valerie blinked. She wasn't expecting that question. "No, sir," she said honestly, "but I have experience. I'm the eldest of 5. I raised my siblings. I've taught Sunday school for years. I may not have a certificate, but I know children." Daniel finally looked up. For the first time, Valerie saw something flicker in his eyes. Not judgment, but curiosity. He closed his laptop slowly. "Okay, I've heard enough," he said, his tone more relaxed. "Linda spoke highly of you. Then, almost as if testing her resolve, he added, "Your salary will be 500,000 naira per month. You'll get a formal contract by email. Just try to last more than a week." Valerie's eyes widened. She stood quickly, nearly knocking over her chair. "Thank you, sir. I won't let you down." As she walked out of the office, clutching her file like it was a treasure map. She didn't even realize a tear had slipped down her cheek. But this time, it wasn't from pain. It was from hope. That night, she returned home and broke the news to her husband, Martins. He was lying on the couch, watching TV like a man allergic to effort. "Honey," she said gently, "I got the job I told you about. I start next week." He didn't even look at her. The nanny job," he mumbled, chewing on ground nuts. "So you can care for other people's children, but not your own. What a joke." Valerie didn't flinch. That sentence sliced her open, but she had no blood left to lose. She turned quietly, walked into the bedroom, and closed the door behind her. That night she didn't sleep. She ironed her clothes 3 times. She packed her handbag like a survival kit, and when the morning light touched the sky, she was already at the gate, ready. Ready not just for a new job, but for a new life. On Monday morning, Valerie stood outside the grand gates of the Nosu mansion. Her heart pounded. It wasn't just a house. It was a statement. Tall walls, black iron gates, glass windows gleaming in the sun. Everything screamed, "We have it all." But as the gates opened slowly, Valerie whispered to herself, "You faced worse. Walk in." The security guard waved her through, and she stepped into a perfectly arranged courtyard. The garden looked like a painting. The car in the driveway looked untouched. And yet, something felt tense, a quiet kind of chaos. She knocked on the door. Moments later, a housekeeper let her in and gestured toward the living room. "Wait here. The children are upstairs. Sir will be down shortly." Valerie nodded and sat on the edge of the plush couch, clutching her small bag. From the staircase above, 2 small heads peeked out. One was a girl with bright eyes and a pink headband. The other, a boy with messy hair and a frown already on his face. Ava and Aiden, the infamous twins. They said nothing, just stared. Valerie gave a small smile and waved. "Hi." They blinked, then vanished. Seconds later, thundering footsteps came flying down the stairs. The twins marched in like tiny royalty, holding tablets in one hand and juice boxes in the other. They didn't say a word to her. They just sat on the couch opposite and began tapping on their screens, completely ignoring the stranger in their house. Valerie tried again. "You must be Ava and Aiden. I've heard a lot about you." Ava gave her a side glance and sipped her juice. Aiden didn't even look up. This was the welcome committee. Minutes passed. Then Daniel entered, wearing a navy suit, coffee in one hand, phone in the other. He looked tired, like someone who had been losing a silent battle for months. "Morning," he said, barely glancing at Valerie. "I have meetings all day. The kids have breakfast at 8, online class at 9, and no screen time after 5. I'll send you a full schedule later." Valerie stood. "Yes, sir, thank you." He paused, looked at his children, then at her again. "Good luck," he added under his breath. And just like that, he was gone. The moment the door closed behind him, Ava stood up. "Miss, what's your name again?" "Valerie." "Miss Valerie," she said in a mockingly sweet tone. "I hope you're not like the last nanny. She cried on her second day." Valerie smiled softly. "Let's try not to make anyone cry, okay?" Aiden looked up now. "That depends. Do you know how to make waffles?" "Yes." "Good. We'll rate your cooking. If you fail, we won't eat." Valerie nodded calmly. Challenge accepted. What followed was nothing short of a battlefield. By 8:30, Ava had spilled syrup on the floor. Accidentally, Aiden had flushed a spoon down the toilet. Scientific curiosity. They bickered, ran around, refused to sit still, refused to eat unless their pancakes were shaped like hearts, and asked over 20 questions about cartoons. Valerie's head spun, but she didn't raise her voice. She didn't flinch. She observed. She listened, and by the end of day 1, she had taken notes. Mental ones. These were not just difficult kids. These were grieving kids. Sensitive, mistrustful, brilliant, but wild. They had lost their mother too young. and every nanny before Valerie had failed to win their hearts. But she was not here to fail. That night, in her small staff bedroom at the end of the hallway, Valerie lay in bed, exhausted, but focused. "This isn't just about the job," she whispered to herself. "This is about showing them what care really feels like." Day 2 began with silence. Valerie woke up early. She had barely slept, but her mind was clear. She spent 20 minutes preparing breakfast. Eggs, toast, fresh fruit, and a warm smile to go with it. At exactly 7:55, she called out, "Breakfast is ready." The twins came down slowly, like they were walking into a trap. They sat, looked at the plates, then looked at her. "What's this?" Aiden asked. "Food," Valerie said. "But we wanted waffles," Ava said with a frown. "Not today," Valerie replied gently. "Today, we eat what we're given." They exchanged glances, clearly not used to being told no. They didn't eat. Valerie didn't fight. She quietly removed the plates after 15 minutes, placed them in the fridge, and cleaned up. The rest of the day was a roller coaster. Aiden accidentally spilled paint on the hallway floor. Ava demanded a new dress because "this one makes me look poor." They refused to do their reading assignments and instead asked, "Why do we need school? Daddy is rich." Valerie didn't lecture them. She didn't lose her patience. She told stories instead, simple, quiet stories about a boy who never listened and missed the best part of his life, about a girl who thought she was too good for chores and ended up with nothing. By bedtime, the twins were unusually quiet. As Valerie tucked them in, Ava whispered, "Miss Valerie, are you going to leave like the others?" Valerie looked her in the eye and said softly, "Only if you make me." The next morning, something shifted. Aiden came to the kitchen and asked, "Can I help crack the eggs?" Ava sat quietly and picked strawberries into a bowl. There was still mischief in the air, still little tantrums, still moments of chaos. But there was something else now, a crack in the wall, a flicker of trust. On day 4, Valerie made her first real move. She gathered every toy, gadget, tablet, and game console in the house and placed them in a locked trunk. The twins walked in and gasped like someone had taken their oxygen. "Where's my iPad?" Aiden shouted. "Where's Mr. Bunny?" Ava shrieked. Valerie sat on the couch calmly, sipping tea. "I don't know," she said. "Maybe the toy goblins came." "This isn't funny," Ava protested. "We'll call the police," Aiden declared. Valerie smiled. "I did already. They said they'll come next week." The twins froze. "But that's too long." Valerie stood and walked toward them. "Maybe we can search the house together," she said. "But only if you make me a promise." "What promise?" Aiden asked. "That you'll listen. That you'll stop treating me like a stranger. That you'll stop breaking things to test me." The twins were silent. Then slowly, Ava nodded. "Okay," she whispered. Aiden looked away, then said, "Fine, deal." Valerie smiled and opened the trunk. Their toys were inside, untouched. The twins gasped and ran to them like long-lost friends. And for the first time since she arrived, they laughed. Not just silly giggles, but deep, childlike joy. Daniel watched from the staircase. He saw everything, and for the first time in years, he smiled. By the end of the week, the mansion was quieter. The twins had started to say please and thank you. They even hugged Valerie, not just once, but twice. It felt like healing. But peace in one place does not mean peace everywhere. Because the moment Valerie stepped through the front door of her own house, that calm shattered like thin glass. There on the couch sat a stranger, a young woman in a red dress. Elegant, silent, unbothered. She didn't smile. She didn't move. She just flipped through a fashion magazine like she owned the space. Valerie froze. Before she could ask anything, a familiar voice boomed from the hallway. "Valerie, come greet your sister. She just arrived from the village." It was Mama Ada, her mother-in-law, grinning like a wicked matchmaker. "My sister?" Valerie asked, confused. Mama Ada stepped forward and declared, "Your co-wife, second wife of my son, a womb that actually works." The words slammed into Valerie like a wave of cold water. Before she could respond, her husband, Tundi, walked in, nonchalantly eating peanuts as if the world wasn't collapsing. "You heard Mama," he said, not even making eye contact. "Either live with it or leave." Valerie said nothing. She stood still as the sky inside her heart went dark. She didn't scream. She didn't cry. That night, she lay in the same house as the woman meant to replace her. She heard them laugh behind closed doors. She cooked while the new bride took selfies in her kitchen. She swept the floors while Mama Ada praised the new woman's fertility aura. Every word, every glance, every silence, it chipped away at her soul. But she stayed because she had nowhere else to go. And because her paycheck from the mansion was the only piece of dignity she had left. Days turned into weeks, and every night, Valerie curled into herself on a thin mattress in the corner of the bedroom, pretending not to hear the whispers that she was barren, useless, dead weight. But even the strongest rope snaps with enough pressure, and that breaking point came one Thursday afternoon. Valerie had just returned from the market, vegetables in hand, sweat on her brow. She reached the front gate and found her bags lined up neatly on the sidewalk. Her clothes, her shoes, her past, all placed outside, like trash waiting for pickup. She knocked, once, twice. Mama. Ada opened the door with a victorious smirk. "Ah, you're back. Good. My pastor came yesterday. He confirmed it." Valerie blinked. "Confirmed what?" "That you're a witch," Mama Ada spat. "That's why the new girl isn't pregnant yet. Your spirit is blocking her womb." Valerie didn't speak. She didn't flinch. She just looked at the woman, and then at the closed door behind her. Then slowly, painfully, she bent down, picked up her bags, and walked away. No one stopped her. No one looked twice. That was how a wife became a stranger. How a woman who once lit candles in every corner of her home, it was reduced to just another name they wanted to forget. It was almost sunset when Valerie arrived at Linda's house. She didn't knock at first. She just stood there, dusty, sweaty, bags in hand, and eyes that had forgotten how to shine. When Linda opened the door and saw her best friend standing there like a statue of sorrow, she didn't say a word. She just pulled her inside and wrapped her in the kind of hug that could hold a broken soul together. Valerie dropped her bags, and finally, her silence. "I gave them everything," she whispered into Linda's shoulder. "My name, my womb, my peace. And now I'm the witch they blame for their unhappiness." Linda didn't ask questions. She didn't offer advice. She just whispered softly, "You're safe now." That night, Valerie didn't sleep, not because of pain, but because her body didn't know how to rest in peace anymore. She lay on the couch in Linda's small apartment, staring at the ceiling fan as it spun in slow circles, like the memories she couldn't switch off, the laughter of the twins, the cruel words of her mother-in-law. Tunda's face, blank, distant, gone. By morning, she hadn't eaten. By afternoon, she hadn't spoken. Linda made tea. Valerie didn't drink it. Linda played gospel music. Valerie didn't react. Days passed like fog. She turned off her phone. She didn't check her bank balance. She didn't look at the news. She just existed, a silent collapse behind closed doors. Then one evening, a soft knock broke through the quiet. Linda opened the door. Standing there, like a scene from a forgotten dream, was Daniel and the twins. Valerie's heart skipped. The moment Ava and Aiden saw her, they ran forward with the speed of light and the weight of love. Miss Valerie," they cried, clinging to her legs. "You look like a zombie," Aiden said, poking her arm. "Are you sick? Did a monster eat your smile?" Ava asked, eyes wide with worry. Valerie knelt down and wrapped them both in her arms. Tears came fast, soft, warm, and unstoppable. "We miss you," they said. "We haven't eaten properly in 1 year," Aiden added dramatically. "The food at home tastes like homework," Ava pouted. Daniel stood behind them, watching with a soft smile. Valerie wiped her eyes and laughed through the ache in her chest. She walked into the kitchen, boiled water, and made them their favorite meal. Noodles with sausage and egg. The twins devoured it like they hadn't eaten in days. After dinner, Daniel pulled her aside. "I heard what happened," he said gently. "I'm truly sorry, Valerie. No one deserves that kind of pain." She nodded, lips trembling. "Thank you, sir." Daniel hesitated, then added, "I want to help. If you need time off, take it. If you need anything at all, shelter, support, rest, just say the word." Valerie looked at him, her eyes full of something new, something like hope. Then Daniel said something unexpected. "Why don't you move in?" Valerie blinked. "Sir, move into the mansion," he said calmly. "Save your money. Rest. Plan your next step. You've done more for my children than anyone ever has." She shook her head instantly. "No, I don't think that's a good idea. People will talk." Daniel chuckled softly. "People always talk, but they're not the ones living your pain. You've earned your peace. Please think about it." Just then, the twins yelled from the living room. "We want to sleep here tonight." "No," Daniel called back. "You have school tomorrow." As they left, Ava turned around and blew Valerie a kiss. That night, Valerie sat on Linda's couch again, but this time, she didn't stare at the ceiling. She stared at her phone. At 11:32 p.m., with fingers trembling slightly, she typed, "I'll move in tomorrow." She hit send. Not as a housemaid, not as a castaway, but as a woman ready to reclaim her strength. This was no longer just a job. This was her rebirth. The morning she moved in, the sun was soft, gentle, golden, like it knew something new was beginning. Valerie stood outside the Nosu mansion, a single suitcase in her hand, and a scarf tied neatly over her hair. She wasn't trembling anymore. She wasn't running from the past. She was walking slowly but surely into her future. Linda dropped her off, smiling from the car window. "Go show them who you are," she whispered. Valerie smiled back, and then she stepped inside. The twins were the first to greet her, barefoot, messy-haired, wild-eyed with excitement. "Miss Valerie." They tackled her with hugs so fierce she nearly dropped her bag. "You came back. We thought you forgot us." Valerie laughed and hugged them tighter. "I made a promise, remember?" Aiden looked up seriously. "Do you promise to never leave again?" Valerie knelt down and said softly, "I promise to stay as long as I'm wanted and needed." Daniel appeared in the hallway, dressed in his usual dark suit, but his face was lighter, softer. He nodded in greeting. "Welcome home, Valerie." She blinked at those words. Home? It didn't sound strange. It sounded right. That day, she was given a private room, clean, cozy, with white curtains and a view of the garden. Her name was no longer just the nanny. She became Miss Valerie, the woman who understood the twins without raising her voice, the woman who brought peace into rooms that used to echo with tantrums. And gradually, things began to shift. Every morning, she made breakfast with care. Eggs never too salty, toast always warm, juice just right. She packed the twins' lunchboxes with tiny handwritten notes. "Be kind today. You're enough. Make someone smile." They loved it. And they started writing back. "Thank you for the pancakes. I got an A in spelling. Can we read again before bed?" In the evenings, Valerie taught them how to sweep properly, how to say please and thank you, how to listen when someone else is hurting. But it wasn't just the children who were changing. Daniel noticed it too. The house felt warmer, lighter, less like a hotel, and more like a home. And Valerie, she rediscovered something she thought was lost, her worth. She woke up early, but not out of fear. She stayed up late, but not in misery. She found joy in the smallest things, the way Ava danced to music from the radio, the way Aiden now hugged her without needing a reason. Late one night, Daniel passed the kitchen and saw Valerie sitting alone with a cup of tea, watching the rain through the window. She didn't notice him. Her face was calm, peaceful. He watched her for a moment, then walked away quietly. In that stillness, Valerie closed her eyes and whispered, "Thank you, God, for bringing me here." This house had once been a battlefield of strangers. Now it felt like sanctuary. Not because everything was perfect, but because finally, she was being seen. Not as a broken wife, not as a barren woman, not as a witch, but as a person. And in that recognition, she began to heal. It was a calm Saturday morning. Birds chirped. The sun filtered gently through the curtains. The twins were still asleep, their favorite storybook resting between them. Valerie had fallen asleep reading to them the night before. Downstairs, Daniel was sipping his coffee when he heard a knock on the door. 3 sharp, deliberate knocks. He frowned. It was too early for visitors. He opened the door and saw her. Valerie stood frozen at the top of the stairs. It was Mama Martin's. Red lace, heavy makeup. That same stare, like a knife dipped in honey. Behind her stood Martin's, her husband. No, Her ex-husband. Valerie clutched the banister. She hadn't seen him in months. Not since the day her bags were thrown outside like garbage. Martins cleared his throat, suddenly sheepish. Valerie, we came to talk. Daniel turned to Valerie, his eyes quietly asking, do you want to do this? Valerie nodded slowly and descended the stairs, each step slow, steady, deliberate. When she reached them, she didn't invite them in. She stood just outside the door, back straight, voice firm. What do you want? Mama Martins scoffed. Is that how you greet family, after everything we've shared? Valerie looked her in the eye. You threw me out like trash. Martins raised a hand. That was a mistake. We shouldn't have done that. Valerie, I've been thinking. Ever since the other woman left. Valerie blinked. She left? Mama Martins sighed. Turns out she couldn't get pregnant either. We thought it was you, but maybe it's my son. The silence was suffocating. Then Valerie chuckled. Not bitterly, not angrily, just a soft, tired laugh. So now you want me back? Martins looked hopeful. Maybe we can start again. You've changed. I can see that. You're doing well. Valerie crossed her arms. You don't know a thing about me. Mama Martins frowned. You've always been stubborn. Valerie shook her head slowly. No, I've always been patient, but patience is not stupidity. Daniel stepped forward then, standing slightly behind Valerie, not interfering, but supporting. Martins noticed. His expression darkened. Are you involved with your boss now? Valerie didn't answer, because the answer didn't matter. What mattered was that she was free. She took a breath and said, clearly, I don't need your apology. I don't need your confusion. I don't need your approval. Mama Martins scoffed again. You'll regret this, Valerie. Valerie smiled. I already did, but not anymore. And with that, she turned, not to slam the door, not to cry, but to walk back up the stairs towards the life she had rebuilt with her own hands. Daniel watched her, the strength in her steps, the grace in her silence. He closed the door slowly. Outside, the ghosts of her past stood in stunned silence. Inside, Valerie returned to the kitchen. She put the kettle on. The house smelled like vanilla and peace. And as she stirred the tea, she whispered to herself, this time I choose me. Weeks passed. The air in the Nosu mansion was different now. Warmer, quieter, filled with soft laughter and the smell of home-cooked meals. Valerie had officially moved in, not just as a nanny, but as someone irreplaceable. To the children, she was family. To Daniel, she was peace. One rainy afternoon, as thunder rumbled in the distance, Valerie sat at the window, braiding Ava's hair. Miss, Ava asked suddenly, do you still miss your old house? Valerie paused, smiled, and gently resumed braiding. I miss the woman I used to be there, she said softly, but I don't miss how she was treated. Aiden looked up from his drawing. Is it true they called you a witch? Valerie nodded. They called me many things. Did it make you sad? She didn't answer immediately, then said, yes, but it also made me strong. Daniel was in the hallway, listening quietly, one hand on the doorframe. Later that evening, after the kids had gone to bed, he joined her on the balcony. Valerie sipped warm tea, wrapped in a soft cardigan. Daniel stood beside her, silent for a moment before asking, do you ever think about starting over? Completely? She looked up. You mean starting over with someone? Daniel's eyes met hers. Maybe with someone who knows your past and respects it. The silence between them was gentle, healing. Valerie smiled, not a shy smile, but one of deep knowing. I used to believe love was sacrifice, she said. Now I believe it's peace. Daniel chuckled. Maybe it's both. She looked out at the city lights. It took everything I had to get here, Daniel. I can't afford to lose myself again. He nodded. Then don't. Just keep being you. That's all anyone who truly loves you will ever want. For the first time in years, Valerie felt safe. Not just in a house, not just in someone's presence, but in herself. She had walked through fire and come out softer. Not because she broke, but because she refused to become the flame. Weeks later, she began teaching again. Weekend classes for young girls at a local church. She didn't talk much about her past, but when she looked into their eyes, full of fear, doubt, longing, she knew what to say. You are not your pain, she told them. You are your rise. The class grew. Her life grew. And one morning, As the twins burst into her room with breakfast, they made themselves burnt toast and half-boiled eggs. Valerie laughed so hard she cried. Daniel watched from the door, coffee in hand, and in that moment he saw it. Not just a survivor, not just a mother figure, but a woman who had rebuilt herself, brick by brick, with love, truth, and firelight. The story you just heard may not belong to one specific person, but it speaks for many. It's a reflection of real emotions, real struggles, and the quiet strength it takes to try again. We don't tell stories just to entertain. We tell them to remind someone out there that they're not alone. Thank you for staying with us till the end. If this story touched something in you, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your thoughts in the comments. Your story matters too, and sometimes the comeback is stronger than the storm. Until next time, take care and keep going.